Developed by Scumhead and Mango, Shrine and Shrine 2 make up a series of total conversions for Doom 2 that were released in 2020, in which you play as Tusk, the skinless red monstrosity who has a great hatred for the Eldritch Horde. In both of these games, you fight all sorts of Eldritch monsters across several very visually interesting levels. Shrine, the first, is certainly the shortest, simplest, and easiest of the two. Playing like a simple reskin of Doom 2, most of the Doom staples in terms of weapons have some sort of representation here. There is a pistol, single and double barrel shotguns, a very loud chain gun adjacent weapon, something that is similar to the rocket launcher, a bone weapon that functions like the chainsaw, and a couple of more unique weapons that stray from the standard lineup. As for the enemies, they similarly follow along with the lineup in the classic Doom games. For instance, there are enemies that are literally just reskins of the Imp, Baron of Hell, Revenant, Cacodemon, and Pinky Demon, among others, as they all have basically the same or just similar attacks. And much like in Doom, the rest of the gameplay boils down to hunting for keys, collecting health and ammo pickups, and finding secrets, which is also true of the sequel. Speaking of the sequel, Shrine 2, this is certainly the more ambitious game of the two. Levels, while their design in terms of layout are pretty standard for the most part, can be quite visually striking, and tend to get even more bizarre toward the later part of the WAD. The atmosphere is heightened even more this time around as well, with some fantastic baked-in lighting, which leans into the use of darkness or even different colors to illuminate some of Shrine 2's corridors, some of which being very fleshy, unsettling corridors. The ambient soundtrack also adds a lot to this atmosphere in combination with the visuals. There was one moment in particular that really caught me off guard, and I think this would be true of most people playing Shrine 2, as this was largely due to the presence of thick fog and the eerie and unsettling noises that an enemy known as the Lighthouse makes. As for the weapons, this is another area where Shrine 2 stands out. The bone weapon returns from the first Shrine, but this time it has a slash attack replacing the chainsaw-like function from the first game. And it can also be used to do a short air dash, which is vital in many of the game's platforming sections. Aside from this, there is an ice crossbow staff of some sort that can freeze enemies, which is a necessity with certain enemy types, and it can freeze damaging bodies of liquids, such as very cold water, in order to create safe walking paths. There is also a cross that shoots highly damaging magic projectiles in a wide spread, a rotary shotgun that can shoot 1 or 5 shells at once, which has an exceptionally beefy sound effect and can be dual wielded. A blood-powered railgun, throwable pods that act as explosive and toxic gas grenades, a biomechanical machine gun that shoots out flies, with the alt fire utilizing flies that home in on enemies, as well as some sort of plasma grenade launcher and shotgun combo, and a very powerful fire axe that doesn't require ammunition, but instead requires that the player keep it equipped for its ammo pool or power pool, whatever you want to call it, to regenerate. All of the weapons here are very interesting and fun to use, but I did have to rely on the ammo regenerating fire axe quite often because, at least on ultraviolence, ammo can be very limited. And at least on this difficulty, it made the game feel a bit unbalanced. This was also largely due to the fact that most of the enemies are bullet sponges, a few of which being ridiculous bullet sponges that take way too long to put down. And while the enemy types are more unique and visually bizarre than in the first Shrine, this aspect of the gameplay did lower my appreciation for this experience, unfortunately. The enemies are very cool though. A few enemies return from the first game, but there are several new additions. For instance, there are monsters that fall to the ground after their heads are blown off, but can still stand back up to attack the player once again. And the amount of time it takes for this to happen can be very unpredictable. Thankfully, the weapon that freezes enemies keeps this process from happening. There are also these pale winged creatures that have the appearance of some sort of corrupted or fallen angel, as well as flying corpses that are suspended by some sort of magical head or object of some sort that shoots out a projectile that does damage over time. In addition to this, there is a reskin of the Mancubus that shoots out grenades that have physics, and the aforementioned Lighthouse, which is an extremely tall, skinny nightmare that rapidly spews out a crazy number of projectiles in a full circle, and takes a lot to put down. On top of this, Shrine 2 has several boss fights, and these are fairly well designed for the most part. So, to wrap things up, Shrine, the first, is very short, simple, and easy, but also very fun and well balanced, whereas Shrine 2 is much longer at 32 levels, in addition to being more ambitious and interesting. Although, there are some balancing issues on the higher difficulties and some annoying bullet sponge enemies that hold it back from being perfect. Both of these WODs for Doom 2 are certainly worth playing, but in terms of Scumhead's work, at least for me personally, I would put Vomitorium above both of these. And go check out my review of that game if you haven't already. But with that being said, I still had a lot of fun playing through both Shrine 1 and 2. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe, and dislike it if you absolutely hated it. As always, enjoy the rest of your day.